Well, hello everyone. It's the Transform Your Birth podcast, and with me today is beautiful Beth. And Beth is a wonderful woman to talk to because she's got a wealth of experience as not only a mother herself of three children, but also she's a pre and postnatal yoga teacher, and she's also a doula. And so often people who are called to this work often get led to this work through their own birth experiences. And so we're very fortunate to have Beth's wisdom with us today. Welcome, darling. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about my birth. Actually, I've never covered them in this much detail before, so it's going to
Uh,
be a lovely experience for
That'll
me
be
too.
awesome. So
Yeah.
tell us about your first pregnancy, Beth, when you were pregnant, how you were feeling about the idea of giving birth, whether you were nervous, scared, and what sort of prep you did.
Yeah, no worries. So I was 29 when I became pregnant with my first baby, and I was really excited about it. And I'd been on a journey for a number of years of, a more conscious way of living, and that started with my yoga teacher training and developed from there. When I asked around about how I should prepare for my birth, I heard about the continuity program because my sister-in-law was a midwife in that previously, and she told me all great things about it. She
Yeah.
also gave me, lots of information that made me want an uninterrupted birth. But then I did the calm birth course as well. So I heard about that from lots of people. It was raved about, and I thought, yeah, that sounds like the kind of preparation I need.
Yeah.
So I did that course, and it really did open my eyes to all the amazing benefits of an uninterrupted birth for both mum and baby. And it
Yeah.
made me really want that for myself and for my baby.
Mm,
So, yeah, it was a great foundation for me. It just gave me lots of information that I didn't know before.
yeah.
And then after the calm birth course, oh, actually, I should say what it did give me that was really significant was a bigger trust in my body.
Right.
So my mum and my grandmother had really long traumatic first births that both ended in cesareans, and I'm my mum's first baby, so that's my birth story. And
Right.
they were both told that their hips were too small for them to have babies vaginally, and the baby just couldn't make it through. And I've quite a similar shape, and I think I definitely had some subconscious thinking that
Right.
I would face the same challenges.
So what was it about what you learnt that helped you to unlock the that as a like a limiting belief system? What shifted your belief around the fact that you were going to be big enough to birth your babies?
I don't think I'd ever really known about physiological birth and how it
Right.
unfolded. And just seeing the visuals, I remember watching the video of the woman birthing and just all the information about how, we just don't grow babies that are too
Mm.
big for us. Like it's not a
Yeah.
common thing. And very likely it was that my mum and my grandmother faced other challenges that just weren't identified.
Mm.
Or, perhaps it was their case, but it didn't have to be mine.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
thing that can happen, we and we'll often hear these sorts of comments from medical caregivers and things like, "Oh, I'm not sure that your hips are big enough, or the baby's too big," the old big babies, card. And one of the things about observing, like looking, say, at a woman's pelvis or the size of a baby, is it's quite irrelevant when it comes to the birth process. Because here's the thing, the baby's head is not a solid mass of bone. It's made up of plates connected by soft tissue, which, given the right forces and the right presentation of the head, will mold that head. It'll shrink the head. And not only that, the pelvis is not a solid mass of bone. It's made up of three bones connected with ligaments that get softened by a hormone called relaxin in pregnancy, making pelvises very flexible. And so often when we hear stories from the past about, unless there's been malnutrition or something in the development of that person, the body is beautifully designed to open and stretch given the right forces and the head to mold. It's not big babies that get stuck, it's malpositioned babies that get stuck, which means little babies can get stuck. But what often happened with our mothers and our grandmothers is they were put on their backs. And when you're on your back, you actually shrink the pelvic outlet, meaning there's less room. And it's not the best physiological position to be in. And that's what a lot of women had to try and birth their babies in. So, probably, the stories within your family could have more to do with positioning and things like that than potentially the size of the baby and their hips.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah,
But they were the stories that I knew, so they were definitely in my mind.
yeah,
And yeah, I think
interesting.
it's one of the biggest things that the course did for me was just help to give me that confidence and trust in my body
Yeah,
and the ability to birth my baby in that way
yeah.
that I wanted to. So
So tell us, how did it unfold, Beth?
well, I was going to share actually something else quickly, if that's okay, Tracy, about
Sure.
my preparation because it was quite unexpected, and I think this is the one of the key things for me that came up about my mental resilience being a big part of how this labor unfolded.
Yeah.
It was training that I'd been doing for years with this boot camp, this local boot camp called Century, and it's not like your average boot camp. They are a military style of training, and they focus on both physical and mental resilience.
Wow.
And yeah, it's quite amazing actually. And they ran these endurance events, which I participated in, and they were really transformational for me. I didn't expect that to come off in my birth, but it did. They were these events where you'd go out all night trekking around this bush track, carrying heavy things, freezing temperatures, and the trainers were trying hard to break you. It was, their aim to get you to quit. And they were transformational for me because I got through them and I realized that, I could do these really hard things. I had that mental grit and that it would feel good when I'd done them. So it was really interesting to me that that ended
Ah,
up being this big part of my preparation, something that I'd done that, I didn't expect to prepare me for birth, but really
yeah.
did. Yeah.
Wow. I think that's a very profound little sharing you've given us there, because unfortunately, in our culture, we tend to be very comfortable. And unless we
Mm,
actually do push ourselves to do things that are hard, we
yeah.
don't always know what we've got inside of us. And
Mm,
birth can often be the first time where women start to discover that there's more inside of them than what they realize.
yeah.
So I think that's really interesting that you were able to connect those two together.
Yeah, it was really foundational. And the coach that I had at the time, who I'd trained with for years and I was actually working for when I was pregnant, I remember him being this big source of affirmation because he said to me, and again, unexpected source to come up for my birth, but it
Yeah.
was there and I'm so grateful for it. He was like, "You're absolutely capable of doing this." He told me about his wife and about women that had trained with him that had easily birthed their babies. Their strong bodies, their strong minds is what helped them. And I trusted him and I believed that was going to help me too. And it really was, yeah, just the
Wow.
greatest gift that he gave me. And I've never told him that, so I have to send him this after
Yeah.
we, yeah,
That's incredible. He should put
yeah,
that on his marketing pages.
he should, yeah,
Helps women to give birth.
yeah, yeah, gives them the
Yeah.
mental grit they might need.
Yeah. Cool.
But then, yeah, the birth itself,
Hmm.
I came earlier than expected. So my baby was born when he was 35 weeks. Yeah, so a little earlier than expected. My waters broke. It was just a trickle at first, and then started to have some colouring. So I went in just to get a check at the hospital, and they confirmed, yeah, waters broken, and I was admitted. They said that they would prefer for me to stay there until I went into labour. And I took that advice. I was hoping that the baby would stay inside for a couple of weeks until I was 37 weeks.
Yeah.
But he had other plans and he came about 40 hours later, or labor began about 40 hours later. I remember just before that, before I started getting contractions, I had the full water release. I felt pressure. I went to the bathroom. I thought I was going to do a wee, and then like it was the strangest sensation. All that water came out, and I remember being a bit worried. Was he okay without all that water in there? Didn't know he was a he at this point, so I was baby, But um, asked the midwife, she reassured us, and then we tried to get some sleep because it was nighttime or just coming on to nighttime. And I remember lying there thinking, I'm just not that comfortable. It's probably just the hospital bed. Don't know what's going on. And then a little while later, I thought, oh, maybe I am actually having contractions. And I tried to wake my husband up, but he's a really deep sleeper. And he sort of roused, and I'll never let him forget this because he was like, no, go back to sleep. You're fine.
They were
And I,
dangerous words.
they were. sure, considering where we were. But I took his advice and I let him go back to sleep and I tried to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long before I was, no, this is something bigger. I need some
Yeah.
help. Woke him up again. We called the midwives. And at that point, they did do a vaginal exam and I was 5 centimeters dilated. So I
Wow.
was, yeah, ready to be rolled to the birth suite. They took me there straight away. Um, yeah, and I was feeling pretty good at that point because I was proud that I was halfway there and managing really well and only just realized I was in labor. So I
Mm.
thought, oh, this is good. My mindset is strong, and hopefully we'll just continue in this way. But things turned quite quickly then. So we got to the birth suites, and I just remember the intensity really ramping up. I'm not sure if that was the change in environment or because this the progress of my labor had been confirmed to me. I mean, that might
Yeah.
have been part of it. It's like, oh shit, here it is. I am in
Yeah.
labor now. But it got intense and it stayed that way. And so I did find this labor actually really challenging. It was way more intense than what I was expecting. I
Mm.
really had strongly believed that I would have a pain-free birth, and I still believe that they're very possible, but it wasn't my experience on that day.
Yeah.
And because I had that belief, I just wasn't prepared to deal with the intensity that I faced at that point,
Mm.
and I didn't know how to handle it. So,
Right.
yeah, I really remember jumping between feeling okay and doing what I could to move intuitively, and then having these other periods where I was quite fearful and obviously had a lot of resistance in my body and a lot of
Yeah.
tension, which was making things tricky for me.
Yeah. So tell us a bit, where did you get the belief around the pain-free birth
I
idea?
think, yeah, part of it came from the calm birth course. I don't
Mhm.
know whether I just hyper fixated on that point and I believed I would have it once that idea was presented to me. But I think the calm birth course that I did was angled towards that and didn't um, give enough information about, other women having different experiences to that and that still being
Yeah.
okay and that still being manageable. So
Yeah.
I did, yeah, have I guess some criticisms of that, the way it
Mm.
was presented after I had that experience, just because I
Yeah.
didn't feel prepared.
Yeah.
But also, it's possible that I just, really focused that on that as being the experience that I wanted. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And potentially I remember I had one of my mothers who was a Buddhist. And
Mm,
when she did my course, she was like, "Oh, I'm going to have a painless labor. I could do this because I can meditate and I can go deep."
yeah.
And then she had this very, very big, robust little boy who was pushing at the gate, and she had this incredibly intense labor. And she
Mm,
kept saying to herself, "What am I doing wrong? This is
yeah.
painful. It shouldn't be painful." And the midwife pulled her up and said, "Look, I can see you resisting it. I want you to just lean into it a little bit." And she said, and when I did that, it immediately became more intense but more manageable. She couldn't
Mm,
kind of describe it. Something shifted.
yeah.
So, given that you were going through very intense sensations, and this is very common, particularly if the waters have broken, because when the waters
Mm,
break, the baby comes down more heavily onto the cervix. And it's the pressure of the baby's head on the cervix that
mm,
tells the body how much oxytocin to release. More pressure, more oxytocin, the more intense the labor, and potentially the shorter the labor as well.
mm, yeah.
So, how were you able to overcome that mental sort of, oh, this shouldn't be painful and it is, and how
Mm.
were you able to resource yourself in that?
It's a good question. I think I was really stubborn, to be honest. I think
Yeah.
I have quite a strong resolve, and that's part of my personality. And as I said, that
Yeah.
that boot camp mentality that I brought in with me was this big
Yeah.
part of like you'll just get through it. Um, and I also knew that my baby being preemie, there were some vulnerabilities there, and
Right.
I believed that that type of birth would be better for him. So I think that was definitely in my mind as well. I will
Yeah.
do this because it will be better for him. Yeah, it was definitely just it was my mental resolve. I was like,
Right.
yeah, it's
Too
it's going to
stubborn
happen
to
this
give
way.
up.
Too stubborn, exactly, and a little bit of competitiveness too, because I remember, um, again, this boot camp, it had a bit of a competitive nature to it.
Mm.
And these other women that my coach had told me about, I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. I remember that coming in. I can
Right.
do this too. I'll get there.
That's a
Um,
powerful mindset, Beth.
yeah,
Yeah, it
I think
is.
so.
That using other women to inspire you
Mm.
towards believing in yourself, that's incredible.
Yeah, inspire is probably a better word than competitive. They were definitely a source of inspiration. I mean, every
Yeah,
birthing woman is for me. I think it's just
absolutely. Yeah,
incredible. Yeah. But I think the other thing that I have reflected on that contributed probably to the intensity that I experienced were external factors, like the fact that I was in the birth suites. I had expected to be in the birth center. I was
yeah,
comfortable in the birth center. I had no idea about the birth suites, never seen them before. And I had a midwife that I didn't know. So my continuity midwife had been done too many hours that week, and so had her partner. So neither of them could come, and I ended up with a stranger.
right.
And I didn't have that person I could trust. You know, the story you just told, where the midwife tapped
Yeah,
in and said, "What's going on with you? I can see that this is not
yeah,
you." There was no one there to do that for me,
right,
and I think that had an impact. I had monitoring on. I remember seeing the numbers on the monitor move before I could even feel a contraction, and that was
right.
doing my head in. And I couldn't move around that much, so my movement was restricted. I was, yeah, didn't have the environment set up. We had all the stuff in the car down in the car park. And my husband was like, "I'll go get it. I'll set the room up." And I was like, "You're not going anywhere."
Yeah,
I
wow.
just couldn't let him go at that point. So there were those factors too, I think, that contributed to how I
Mm,
was managing.
yeah,
But the other thing that got me through was movement. So I didn't lie down the whole time until the very end. I
yeah,
remember that I was doing this squat up and down on my toes. It was just intuitive movement. And obviously, what my body and my baby needed. My
yeah.
calves were absolutely burning the next day because I just was doing this squat up and down on my toes.
Wow.
But I guess it helped. And, staying upright, as we know, is really helpful.
Mm,
And the movement, it did just help me manage the sensations. It's
mm,
like just, yeah, getting in a bit of a groove with it, I guess.
yeah,
And the breath was, yeah, I remember the motto that it was in my mind because at one of those endurance events, one of the coaches had sneakily said to me, I think, he was meant to crack my spirit, but he must have had a soft spot at that point. And he said, just one foot after the other, mate. And that stuck in my mind. It stuck in my mind like, nothing else has actually. It comes up for me all the time. And I remember thinking of it in labor, just
yeah,
one foot after the other, just stay here. And it just became one breath at a time, like just one breath after the other. Don't
yeah.
think ahead. Who knows when this is going to end, but we can finish this breath here. Then we
Mm,
can finish the next one.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the only way to manage labor because you don't know where the finish line is.
Yeah.
And because of that, it can really mess with your mind. But Mother Nature throws in what a decent dose of timelessness into our hormonal cocktail. In other words, we have no idea around time.
Yeah.
And the whole goal, she wants us to be in this contraction right here, right now, to be really
Yeah.
present. The
Yeah.
cortex goes offline. We can't think anymore. Thinking irritates us. We just need to be very, very present. So
Yeah.
it's a
And
beautiful state to be in. Mm.
it's so helpful. I remember
Yeah.
actually in talking of timelessness when the sun started to come up and I could
Yeah.
see it, the blinds were open. I was like, close the fucking blinds. I do not need to see that it's morning
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's distracting and
Yeah.
then it becomes you feel a bit defeated.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was
So,
really helpful. Then it was transition, Tracy, and that was a big crisis of confidence moment.
yeah.
I remember that being a big moment. I remember just saying, I need something, I need something, I need something. And they kept saying, you can have some gas. And I was like, I don't want gas. It's going to make me feel sick. And they'd say it again, and I'd say that. And it was this dialogue back and forth that was enough to distract me. And then, I never said the word epidural. I think I knew I didn't want that. I just wanted them to know that I was struggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they did the best thing by me by just saying, you can have the gas over and over again. And, it was enough to deter.
Yeah.
And then I was basically at the pushing phase. So it ended up with me on my back. Unfortunately, I remember just before, I guess, the pushing phase, I was feeling really tired.
Mm.
And someone suggested that I get on the bed to have some rest. And so I did. And I do remember kind of micro sleeping between the contractions. And
Yeah.
my sense is that was helpful for me, that
Yeah.
I did need some rest before entering the next stage.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I stayed on my back, and I'm not sure whether it wasn't suggested to me to move or whether I didn't want to move. could have been either
Yeah.
of those things.
Yeah.
But I
Did you feel
birthed him.
comfortable on your back, Beth?
Well, I don't remember feeling, yeah, I don't remember feeling uncomfortable. I mean, I was just generally uncomfortable. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know, to be honest.
See, I have had women come back and say, yeah, I burst on my back and I loved it, which is why
Yeah,
it's always taught me don't get too definitive about what women need at different times and stages of their labor. But what I do believe is if they're given the time, the freedom and the space,
yeah,
ability to choose themselves, they typically choose positions that support the birth process. And
yeah.
so that might have been the perfect position for the way your baby was coming through the pelvis. Who knows?
It very well could have been. I mean, I had no complications. The pushing stage was fairly easy. In fact, I
Yeah.
loved it. It felt so much more purposeful. It was so
Yeah.
much better than just managing contractions.
Right.
And, my baby came with 45 minutes of pushing. I had no tearing. I was all good. So yeah,
Wow.
maybe that was the right position for him and I
Yeah,
at that point.
exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what was it
When
like when you met him?
Oh, well, it was a different experience, I guess, because he was early. So when he
Yeah.
was born, there was a room full of people. I remember looking to the side and just going, oh, fuck, how many people are in here? There was,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
team of them. And he came out and he was okay. He needed a little bit of breathing assistance. And I got to see him for a moment, but I didn't get to touch him. And he was whisked off to NICU with my husband. And that was a very bizarre experience, just being on my own. I was like reveling in this birth and feeling really proud of myself that I'd gotten there without, too much intervention.
Yeah.
But not having my little prize there, my baby was,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's
pretty
the
horrible.
that's the hardest thing I think. Women can go through really complex, tricky births, and all sorts of things, but they'll often say the hardest part is separation
Yeah.
because it's not the way it's meant to be when a baby lands. Our whole orientation is around wanting to be with that baby. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the journey that followed, I mean, I could do a whole nother podcast episode on that,
Mm,
but 3 weeks in special care, um, without me being able to stay with him. I was in hospital for one
wow.
night and then discharged, and it just breaks my heart that that is what our hospital offers, that mothers
Mm,
can't stay with their little babies who are so vulnerable, and the mothers
yeah.
are vulnerable too, and it's just, I think, just
Wow.
really, really poor that it's not
Yeah.
facilitated.
No. And I
Yeah.
don't think it helps the child. Like I
Oh,
always believe little ones who are struggling to land
yeah.
stabilize a lot quicker when they're close to their mothers or on their mothers. I
Yeah.
always question a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and my baby was well. That's the other thing. He was really
Right,
well, and it was it ended up being a journey of just transitioning him from a tube feed to a breastfeed,
right.
which took 3 weeks. And I don't think it would have taken that time if I was just there with him and I was able
Yeah,
to
lie
be
with it.
with him. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So
So
how did then when you were pregnant with number two, how did the first birth influence any decision making and what you chose for number two?
yes, I after number one, I was proud of myself. I knew my body could do it. All of that stuff was there. But I knew that I needed to approach it a little bit differently with my mindset. So,
Yeah,
my first step, and I wanted to do this anyway, was to train to be a prenatal yoga teacher. And I thought, oh, it's a great time to do it. I'm pregnant. I can experience everything in my body and then apply it to this pregnancy. And I remember one of the very first lessons with my teacher, she said at the start of class, like, I just want to acknowledge freely that lots of women find birth to be painful. And I was just like, oh, it's just like a big weight got lifted off my
yeah,
shoulders, because of that first experience and the challenges that I'd had. And I just felt instantly my shift from idolizing a pain free birth to just being okay with whatever came up and knowing that I could manage it and knowing that it wasn't failure if I didn't, achieve that.
yeah,
Yeah, it really normalized it for me and
mm,
it made such a big difference to my mindset. And
yeah,
then, yeah, yeah, the training that I did with the teacher as well was all about focusing on breath and your sound and your movement. So I did all of those things throughout my pregnancy, and I think the continuous practice that I applied, made such a big difference. It made those things be such an automatic response in my body, and that's what I teach my students now, and I hear the
yeah,
same from them. And I'd practice it sitting and then in a squat pose or something like that where discomfort was building in my body, so I could really apply the technique to something that, was similar to a contraction.
Yeah.
Did that and listened to the birth. Actually, Tracy, I then had your birth meditations and I listened to them a lot when I was pregnant with my second baby. I loved them. I'd listen to them while I was walking. I remember walking up the hill near my house, just
Yeah.
listening, yes, about birth and playing it over in my mind how it was going to go.
Hmm.
And that was beautiful. And your voice was so soothing.
Oh, lovely.
And then I had a birth playlist as well that I listened to heaps. So I made one that was full of these beautiful yogic mantras that were really calming and soothing for me. And I'd listen to them when I was relaxed and create that positive association. And that was a really beautiful experience that I did feel the difference of when I brought that into the labor room. It was like when that played, like, it was just instantly relaxing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And actually, we use that playlist in our prenatal classes. So if anyone's listening that's been to them, they'd know it well. And I've heard from many of the mums actually that's been used in their births, which is really lovely to know.
Yeah.
Um, but the pregnancy, actually, there was a bit of a spanner in the works around 34 weeks. I found out my bubby was breech.
Ah,
Yeah. And I was quite stressed about that because I was really set on having, I wanted my water birth. I was, definitely wanting to do this a certain way. So I did everything that I could to turn this baby. I did acupuncture, chiro, I did all the spinning babies. I spent a long time lying on my ironing board upside down because that's one of the techniques that they suggest.
yeah.
And I went swimming a lot, just did all the things. And then luckily, when I was 37 weeks, my baby turned. So it was the day before I was scheduled to have the ECB, which was fantastic that we didn't have to go through that.
Yeah.
Um, and such an interesting reflection I had recently when my doula coach, I had a client with a breech baby, and she said to me, just make sure there's nothing emotional that's, holding the baby in that position. I was like, okay, I'll check.
Yeah.
And then I thought about my own situation and the fact that I was really stressed that my baby was going to come early and I didn't want to be separated from this baby or from my toddler. So maybe that was my story, that this baby was held up there because I was not ready for it to come until I was 37 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, a bit of a spanner.
I love what you've said there about the emotional components around a
Mm,
pregnancy and the way that things unfold. We tend to focus on physiology and a breach is a breach, but I think there's a lot of truth in what you've said around the emotional layers of what it is to be human and how that impacts our physiology and can then
mm,
impact things like positioning of our babies.
yeah.
And I know that there is a dance that happens between the mother and the baby in utero and through the birth process. And then, of course, when they're here, where there's so many, what's the word? So many dynamics at play that are intrinsically there to help us to become bigger and better and wiser and more mature. When you go from being the woman to the mother, that's a bigger version of the woman. And so the learning that is inherent in the process of pregnancy and getting ready to birth and giving birth is all part of this. And so when things like that happen, it's all where babies are presenting in breech, or maybe your baby's not coming and you're not going into labor and you're sort of
Mm,
getting close to that 42-week mark. These are the sort of areas of the experience that are worth exploring. What is it emotionally that could be preventing babies from coming? Or what is it emotionally that is causing this baby to be head up close to its mother's heart rather than head down?
yeah,
So I think it's interesting your reflections on that are probably quite accurate.
I
Does
think
that
so. Yeah.
feel true for you, Beth?
It does, and it just didn't
Mm,
occur to me until my doula coach said that, and I remember
yeah,
thinking, "Oh, what? Okay, I'll ask this woman." But and then as soon as I thought into my own experience, I was like, "Aha, that makes lots of sense."
yeah,
I was really fixated on my baby potentially coming early, and
yeah,
such relief at 37 weeks when he was not early and he was then head down.
yeah. There you go. You let go.
I think so, yeah. And you do
Mm,
hear that from so many women, don't you? That the this emotional release that comes before their baby's born,
Yeah.
and it allows them to
Yeah.
have the baby come. So yeah, I
That's
think,
right. I call
yeah.
it birth readiness, where women have got to get to that
Mm,
point in their pregnancy where they're trying to control. Oh, we bring the baby on. It's going to be this. It's going to be that, and they're getting all stirred up about what's going to happen. And then there comes a point. I call it the fuck it moment. It's one of my favorite phrases, but it's that point where you just go, oh, fuck it. I'm just ready for anything. And it's a process of letting go of the fact that you're about to walk into the mystery. And I
mm,
think if women don't do it in pregnancy, it'll come up in the birth. And if they don't do it in the birth, it can come up in early parenting. There's got to be, on some level, the letting go of
mm,
the need to control and to
yeah,
make things be a certain way.
yeah, I agree. I think that's
It's
spot
not
on.
it's not the terrain we're walking on when we have babies. We are not in
No.
control. We never have been. We've got to get on board with that.
I've got to learn that lesson. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
So how did the sensations of baby
Yes,
number two? Well,
yes.
tell us about the birth. Yeah.
The birth, yeah. So I was surprised, really surprised to make 40 weeks. I was, yeah, compared to 35, really different
Yeah.
experience. I felt huge and my baby was quite big. And actually, a few days before, or maybe it was a couple of weeks before, I I had to have an appointment with an OB because my baby, I'd had these late scans because of an autoimmune disease that I had. So they knew my baby was measuring in the 97th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me the fear talk around shoulder dystocia. This was even after my baby, yeah, after my baby had turned. So I think all of that was in the back of my mind. And when I was the day before 40 weeks, I asked, or I think I insisted on a stretch and sweep. I was ready for those reasons, probably not for the right reasons, but for those,
Yeah.
more fear-based reasons for the baby
Yeah.
to come. But it did do the job. So I went into labor that night, the day before I was 40 weeks. Um, and it was so different. I mean, it was much quicker. This labor was only 2.5 hours. My first was
Wow.
8. My first was pretty quick for a first birth, and this one was quicker, 2.5.
Yeah.
And I again was the evening. I was in bed. I was, semi-aware that contractions might start because I'd had the stretch and sweep and I'd had some kind of feelings after having it. But also you can get those and not go into labor. So I was sort of unsure. And I remember just being a bit uncomfortable, moving to a different bed so I could have a bit more freedom away from my husband. And I started watching a movie. And it wasn't long. I think I was only like 10 minutes into the movie by the time I thought, I need to get up, actually. I need to get up and move around.
Yeah.
And when I did that, I started timing a few contractions just to see, where I was at and realized, oh, actually, these are coming quite fast and they're getting quite strong, but all really manageable. I honestly, I would still describe those sensations as painful, but I managed, like they just weren't unmanageable at all. They
Right.
were they were really easy for me to work with, and yeah, so
And yet it
different.
was a quicker labor, which
Yeah,
because often I say to women, don't wish a quick labor on you because it can be very, very intense when the body's working that hard so quickly.
yeah,
But
yeah,
for you, it became more manageable. Are you aware of why? Like, what do you think contributed?
I think it was my mindset. I think I just
Yeah,
I felt these sensations were normal, so that made them not
doable.
scary. Yeah, not
Right.
scary. They were fine. They were normal. They were what was supposed to happen. I knew I had my breath and my sound, and that was guiding me through. And I
Yeah.
knew that's all I needed. I just had this trust in it, and yeah, I guess having had a baby before and knowing that I could get through that intensity also contributed to me having more trust and, a better idea about what I was maybe going to experience. But I just think the mindset had the biggest role in it.
Wow.
Mm,
Interesting.
yeah. Yeah. So we went to the hospital. I think we called the midwife. I woke my husband up again. This time he didn't fob me off. Um,
He learned.
he learned his lesson. Yeah. No. He he called the midwife, I think, and she was like, "Oh, it's only been an hour that you've been having contractions. So just wait a little bit longer and call me back." And we called her back, I think, 15 minutes later to say, "No, I think we need to come now." We went in and I got straight in the bath, and it was just honestly, it was such a lovely experience. I was so relieved to be in the water. This water birth was what I had wanted since before my first baby. And I had my husband there. He was holding my hands. I think I was squeezing the shit out of his hands, but he was also feeding me an ice block. And I just remember that really nice sensation of having a cold ice block and being in a bath that was warm. In fact, it was so good that every time I have a doula client, I'm like, you must have ice blocks. This is something you cannot do without.
Magic weapon.
We will be bringing ice blocks. Yeah. And I have not had a woman say they aren't amazing since. So
there you
anyone
go.
listening can maybe take
There we
that
go.
note
Pop
down.
the ice blocks in your toolkit.
Yeah. That, and I remember my midwife, because she was there. It was so lovely to have her. She went on leave the next day. So when we called her, I was unsure she would be there, but she was still working that night. I was very lucky. And she was passing this tissue that had lavender on it in front of my nose. And I just remember smelling it and being like, oh, so nice. And it was all just, feeling really good. And my baby came an hour after I got to the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah. So all speedy and all pretty easy. My birth environment was what I wanted it to be. My husband set it up when we got there. He did a great job. He put on all the things. He had an instruction sheet that I gave him, and he just went and did the jobs that he needed to. He really took control of that. And actually, I should have said he did do a really good job in my first birth as well. I don't think I made that point, but he was a great support.
Wow.
Yeah. He did all the things that he could to help me feel more comfortable. Yeah. And baby born in the water was a special experience.
And you got to hold your baby straight away, which would have been a lovely thing.
Yeah, it was the biggest difference, actually. It was so great that I had this birth that felt so empowering and, kind of so easy. And I felt strong. I felt like, I felt strong like the first one, but after this one, I felt like a bit of a birthing goddess. But nothing compared to having the baby on my chest.
Yeah.
There's a photo. Yes, there's a photo of me and I'm holding my baby, and my friend pointed out I have this look on my face of like, oh my God, I did it. And here's my baby and I've got him. And it's just, when she pointed that out, I thought, oh, that's exactly what that moment was. I was so happy to have him there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Tell us about your third one.
The third one, gosh, yeah. My babies weren't that far apart. So there was 20 months between my first and my second, and then 22 months between my second and my third. So there's 3.5 years between oldest and youngest. So I really kind of powered through, I think, as you did too, Tracy, with your first.
Yeah, I did. I was the same. I'm in the mode. I'm going for it.
Yeah, that was my approach as well, and I don't regret it. It's been hectic, but see so many beautiful benefits of their connection now, which it's just so incredible. But my third baby, I didn't find out with either of my boys what I was having. They were surprises. But with this little baby, I did. I found out that I was having a girl. And the reason I think I found out was I expected to have a third boy, and I was fine with it. But I needed to know, I felt like I wanted to know anyway before I met the baby. It just felt important to me to process anything that was there before I met this beautiful soul. So that's why I decided to find out. And it was actually quite a different experience knowing what I was having. It gave me this different ability to visualize the baby and, connect with her. Not that I didn't connect with the others, but it was different. We could think about naming her, and I don't regret finding out for that one, actually. It was nice to have the contrast of the experiences.
Yeah.
And I don't know, because it was my last pregnancy, I just really savored it. It was so special. I don't know, everything was my last, the last kicks and the last time my belly would be like this and have a baby in me. And it was a really special experience. I was also teaching prenatal yoga by that point. So I was sharing that experience with all these women that I was teaching. And that was something I'll never forget, actually. Really special. Yeah. But I did all the same things for this one. So I probably didn't practice quite as much, but, I did the daily breath, I did the daily sound, and listened to the meditations again and listened to my birth playlist. And I did lots of yoga, actually. I do remember the one thing about this baby was I had been told a few times the third baby's a wild card. You usually expect the second baby to come quicker than the first, but the third baby, who knows?
Yeah.
So I remember that kind of played on my mind, and I was thinking I need to prepare myself for a longer labor, but I want to do everything physically to make sure that, my baby has the space that it needs, and, the exit is a smooth ride. So I was yeah, pretty religious about practicing yoga of an evening. In fact, I use, and I recommend this to so many women, the Spinning Babies Daily Essentials video. It has a yoga flow at the end of it.
Yeah.
And it was just a really nice, short little yoga flow. Maybe it's 20 or 30 minutes. And I do that in the evening before I went to bed because it's relatively gentle and it actually prepared
Mm.
me for sleep quite well. But it was just so nice I'm a yoga teacher. I could have made it up on my own, but I just like to turn something on, switch my brain off, and just do what I was told. And it became a really nice ritual, actually. And the movements in it are really everything you need. So I think that's a good tip as well.
I've had a lot of women talk about the body work and stuff that they do
Mm.
prior to birth and how every one of them, without question, has felt that it makes a really big difference. What do you think the yoga flow sequences, how do you think they supported this preparation?
I think they had all the right hip opening positions. There was lots of releasing, did like forward leaning inversions and things that could help just to release tension in the uterus and the round ligaments. And I think all of that just helps to create space in your pelvis
Yeah.
so that your baby has a smoother ride out.
Mm,
And like you're saying, there's so many great things you can do now, like internal release work and
yeah.
pelvic floor work that can assist with your
Mm,
birth and your labor. And I think they're so worthwhile as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
And how
yeah.
did baby number three's birth unfold?
Oh, well, so it turns out it was not 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 a wild card in the long side. It was a very quick birth. It was about 90 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, really quick, but very similar to my second in terms of how I managed it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really remember slowing down much for this baby and this birth. We were at a busy stage of life, and the day before, I had two toddlers. I was pushing them around the zoo in this double pram, quite a heavy weight going up these hills, and I lost my mucus plug. And I remember thinking, oh,
At the zoo.
at the zoo, probably shouldn't be doing that at this point. What if I went into labor right here with these two kids in the middle of the zoo?
Yeah.
Um,
With
anyway,
your
made it
history
home.
of with your history of quick births.
I know. Luckily made it home, and it wasn't until the next day when the baby was born. But same thing, I was busy that day. We were hoping to sell our house and buy a new one. So I took the two kids. My husband was working, so I took two of them with me to three open homes.
Oh
We
my
did
gosh.
that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. Anyway, it was what it was. It's what I
Nesting.
was doing. Yeah, I
Nesting,
guess
Beth.
so.
Nesting.
Extreme nesting is what I always call it to the ladies in our classes. They say we're renovating, we're moving. I'm like, it's extreme nesting.
Nesting. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
So that was what I was doing. And I remember during the day, like, oh, I'm probably having some signs here, but I'm not going to, pay too much attention. They're probably just Braxton Hicks, which is kind of my pattern of not acknowledging that I'm in labor until I'm really in labor.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I got home, my husband came home, and then things started to change. And I wonder if it was his presence. He's home now. I can
Yeah.
allow this to
You can
happen.
let go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it really was quite quickly after he got there. And it was the weekend as well. So I knew, oh, he's off tomorrow. There's no pressure.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, my mum came to get the boys, and as they were leaving, things were getting more intense. I remember one of them touching me, and I was sort of, jumped back because I was having a contraction, and poor little guy was like, "Oh, sorry, mummy." And at that point, I knew it. They needed to be out of the
Mm.
space for that time. Um, but yeah, intensified quickly, and I was so surprised to be in labor during the day. I've never had a day labor before. Both the
Right.
others had been in the night. And it was actually lovely because I was just folding the washing and I was walking around the house doing these odd little tasks. Like my children have this dinosaur set that you screw together, and I was unscrewing the whole thing so they could do it the next day. And just walking around when I had contractions, pacing the whole time, doing my hum. My sound was absolutely essential for me again.
Hmm.
And I then had this huge pause. So the labor kind of I stopped having contractions. It must have been about 25 minutes, and I only had one in the middle. And I thought, this is not what I want. I want this to continue. So I said to my husband, let's go for a walk. And we walked up on the bush reserve near our house. Um, and that walk like changed things straight away. Things started happening. It was getting more intense. I started making louder and louder sound, and he was like, "We need to turn back. We need to go home now." So we did, and as soon as we got home, he identified. He said, "I'm going to call the midwife now. We need to call the midwife."
Hmm.
And called her, told her about the break in the contraction. She said, "Oh, why don't you just wait a little bit and call me back?" Anyway, we called her back about 2 minutes later and said, "No,
Yeah.
it is time to come." And I was lucky we went then because my little girl was born about 5 minutes after we got there.
Wow.
Yeah, so I walked the whole labor. I didn't sit down one time. I
Yeah.
walked into the hospital, I mean, other than in the car, but that was a very short car ride,
Yeah.
luckily. Otherwise, she probably would have been born in the car. But yeah, got in there, was still on my feet, and I remember leaning over the bed, still on my feet. My legs were shaking, and someone saying to me, it must have been one of the student midwives, "Do you want to get down in your knees?" And I'm just going, I can't. I'm just, this is where the baby's coming now. And she came out and, probably two or three pushes, and
Wow.
she was there handed to me. It was, yeah, incredible again to have my baby there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, Beth. Incredible stories. The natural pause piece there. It's
Mm,
I remember listening to a very experienced midwife talk about natural pauses in labour. It's not something I ever experienced, but it's a lot more common than what we realize, but we think we need to fix it. We think
mm,
we need to make things happen when really it's Mother Nature giving you a bit of a break.
yeah.
And her advice was always enjoy a natural pause. If you get to have a little sleep or a rest and things die off a little, that's good. Now, we can have those sorts of labours that stall when we transfer from home to hospital. It's
Mm.
very normal with a bit of adrenaline to just, stall that labour a little bit, but typically it'll kick back off again. But it's good for people to know that if you do have a pause in labour, it's not a problem to be fixed.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I've heard
Yeah.
that too since then. And
Yeah.
yeah, that probably was exactly my situation. And
Yeah.
I've heard of people having really quite long pauses
Yeah.
and it just
Okay.
being a really, welcome rest time for them if they embrace it in that
Yeah,
way. So I think what you're saying
exactly.
is absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah. So it's good. So with all of those experiences, Beth, and the fact that you're a doula now and you
Mm,
still work with pre and postnatal women, what advice would you give to labouring women about birth?
mm. So many things. I honestly think your breath practice, just getting in tune with your own breath, is so foundational. I
Yeah,
personally love adding in sound. I teach that to all the women that come to our classes. I
yeah,
found sound for me, and I've heard this from so many of our students, was just the tool that helped their breath also to be more consistent, but also
right.
sound has this, really releasing
Mm,
feeling to it as
yeah,
well. Helps to encourage our energy down. I just think it's one of the greatest tools. Um, but then that mindset piece is so huge. So just being okay with what comes up, hoping to have, yeah, like if you have this birth that's not painful, or it's even better than that, it's orgasmic, it's blissful, it's there, it's a possibility. But if you don't end up with that experience, knowing that it's just your body being powerful and it's this uterus contracting one big muscle, and it's just your the strength of your body is
yeah.
what you're feeling. And I think being okay with that and knowing that that pain is your power, you can manage it. If it's there, you're still okay.
Hmm.
That's a really powerful thing to keep in mind.
Mm,
Hope for the best, but prepare for the other circumstances, I think is
yeah,
a helpful mindset to have.
yeah. Such wisdom. That's fantastic. And what did you learn about yourself?
Mm. Oh, through my births, it's a really good question. I mean, I think it strengthened that mental resolve that I had started developing, and then knew that I really had big time. I guess the probably the mothering, the parenting has taught me really significant things.
Yeah.
I have learned to surrender in a deeper way. In fact, I don't know that I knew how to surrender that well before I became a mother, but the inner work that motherhood has given me, the need to do, but also then the
Mm,
space to do and the insights to do has been really profound. So I think in many ways I would attribute my learnings about myself more to the motherhood journey than the actual births themselves. I've really learned how to slow down with my children and to appreciate
Mm,
this slower pace of life and the learnings that have come from knowing myself better because they show me things about myself or how I react to them shows me things about myself has
yeah,
been quite life changing, actually.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a process I'm really grateful for.
It's very much, we think about the birth as separate and then, early parenting as separate but it's one long path.
Mm,
And the things that you learn in pregnancy and birth are there to set you up for parenting. And I love how you can see the profound effect your children have had on you as a woman and now as a mother of three.
mm,
Beth is also at home with her children most of the
mm,
time, which is a beautiful gift if you have the choice to be able to do that, because you really get to tune into your kids well when you're with them, for long periods of time. It um, can make parenting a lot easier when you get to spend that sort of time with your kids and really get to attune to them. And
yeah,
the wisdom of motherhood and what it shows you about you is, like, I think it starts in pregnancy and then it just continues on as they go through their phases. Would you agree
yeah.
with
Oh, totally. And I think it not only helps you tune into them, but into yourself in this
that?
deeper way, which
Yeah,
is then, where life can change so dramatically. It
mm,
reprioritizes, or it has reprioritized everything for me. And
yeah,
this time that I've had off with them, I did actually, go back to work between my boys for this short amount of time. It felt so hard for me to put a 1 year old in daycare, and
yeah,
my boys only went a couple of days and it was at a really nice place, but I found that actually really traumatic, and
yeah,
I didn't do it with my daughter because I just knew by then, and I knew more about
mm,
how kids develop, and it felt really important for me not to take that path with her,
yeah,
and then have more time with my boys as well, because at that point
mm,
they weren't in school yet. I had them all at home, and I still do. My oldest has started kindy, but I've been able to be around for them, and it's
mm,
just made such a difference. We're so much more stable because I'm not busy. I'm
yeah,
not busy in my mind. I'm not, trying to do too many things at once. I've
yeah,
got the capacity for them.
mm,
And that's something I don't think I would have in the same way if I was at work now.
mm, yeah. These are the sort of conversations that we as women should have more of, because so many women default into the idea that they're going to go back to work without really stopping and saying, what do I need in this situation? What's best for my family? Might not be the mother being at home, it could be the father or other mother or um, pe grandparents. All sorts of options are available to us, but that whole tuning in to how you want to be as a mother. And you
Mm,
don't actually know how you're going to feel until these babies land. That was the biggest shock I had. I just always assumed I'd go back to work. But I had a very similar response to you, is that I just didn't want to my other people raising my sons. So
yeah.
I chose to ultimately give up work. I had went back briefly between the first two, a bit like you, and then just thought, no, this
Mm.
is where I want to be. And we had to reorganize our life to accommodate those choices, but I certainly don't regret it.
I think
Mm,
that's, yeah. And, we had a bit of a chat on this before, you and I. And I think that
yeah.
point that I wish someone had raised to me before I went back between my first and my second was, you've
Mm,
got other options. You might not think you do, but you actually do. You can
yeah.
reorganize things and,
Yeah.
think outside the box a little. There's other options.
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
really worthwhile thinking them through if
Yeah.
you've got that calling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it feels that's the way you want to go. Well, we've got so much juice out of this interview with lovely Beth. I knew her wisdom would be overflowing, and she's really helped us to see how her path has taken her to be the mother she is today, the mother she wants to be today. She does the work on herself as she's discovered more and more with each birth what each experience is inviting her to learn and to become as she continues to upgrade and expand her capacity. And now she's at home with these three beautiful children. So I hope this story has inspired you all out there to really tune in and walk your path, get the support, do the preparation, get the support that you need, and trust that the path will take you where you need to go as you emerge as parents. Big love to you all, and we'll talk to you again next time. See ya.